Welcome to episode 19 of Pearls of the Interior Life. Today is also the fifth and final episode in our series of our coronavirus spiritual super vaccination series. We're really going to be drilling down on the one thing that must be done to deal with life's trials. And it's the one thing that must be done because everything else must be done as well. But there's an order to things. And how do we prepare for trials? How do we respond to them when they come? Certainly, those are the questions on everyone's minds these days. And the answer to that is something that looks an awful lot like not preparing and not responding. It looks a lot like just sitting in silence, but it's actually sacred silence. And so, is that really the best we can do? And the answer is yes, it is. And that's what we're going to talk about in just a moment. Our big goal is happiness in this life and heaven in the next. To achieve this, we need to stay close to God throughout each day. But how do we do that while living in the real world with all of its challenges and distractions? Growing our interior life through Christian mental prayer is the answer. This podcast mines the riches of the greatest spiritual tradition on earth so we can grow in holiness together. I'm Steve Smith. Thank you for joining me for Pearls of the Interior Life. Well, thank you again for joining us today, for making this time for the Lord. As we said, our focus, is on, again, that one thing that we do that's all important, but we are going to look at three very practical responses that we can take to the trials in our life, be it the coronavirus trial now or whatever you may be facing when you're listening to this. Now, that one thing, once again, is, of course, Christian meditation. I'm just like a one-trick pony hammering away on that. That, along with devotion to our Blessed Mother, is the very best preparation and response to the trials that will inevitably come into our life. And the question that can reasonably be asked is, the very best? That's a pretty extensive or extreme statement. And yes, I'll stand by that. It is the very best. And someone can question, well, what about all the other things? For Catholics, what about availing yourself of the sacraments? What about going out and helping, providing the physical and spiritual needs for the people in our life? Or what about all the other things, again, that we can do? Bible studies or consecrations or novenas? And the answer is yes, all those things are important, and they're vital, and they're so vital that they're not the main thing. You may recall an old advertising campaign by the German industrial manufacturing giant BASF. And they would say, at BASF, we don't make the lotion, we make the lotion smoother. We don't make the dress, we make the dress brighter, and so on. And then they would close with that line, at BASF, we don't make many of the products you buy, we make many of the products that you buy better. And so many things in life are that way. And certainly, absolutely, that is the key point I'm trying to drive home here with Christian meditation. Christian meditation elevates everything else that we do. And in that way, that is why it is actually superior to everything else, because it makes everything else better. This is the ordering of things. It turns everything into a loving conversation with God. And they were kind of mixing our paraphrases of both St. Teresa of Avila and St. Josemaria Escriva. No, this is why we have this laser focus on Christian meditation. But there are all of these other things that are very good responses to times of trial. With that, let's look at three things, three concrete things that we can also do in the response to trials in our life that are real gems that we get from our Christian faith. And yet the first one is going to be to count our blessings. That's so wonderful when you hear people in the face of anything. Certainly you hear it a lot right now, saying, I'm counting my blessings. And the power in that is humility. Humility, known as the queen of virtues, because it vanquishes and it crushes pride, that most insidious of sins and vices. And gratitude and humility, they go hand in hand, because the grateful person is the humble person. They realize that there's nothing they have that they haven't received. And ultimately, we've received it from God. Gratitude, counting your blessings, that's one of the things that is always meant to be directed towards a person. We don't just thank the universe. The universe didn't give us anything. Everything eventually comes to us through another person. And ultimately, it came to us from God, who is the source of all good things, every good thing we have in life, including our life, especially the possibility to spend eternity in heaven. It comes from God. So starting there, leading off in gratitude for all the blessings that we do have, the people in our life, the material things in our life, whatever comforts that we do have, and especially gratitude for God. Beautiful response in the face of hardships. Number 2, doing small things for others. We're created for community. It is deeply written into our human nature, actually right from creation. It is not good for man to be alone. And then the second great commandment, love your neighbor as yourself. And at the Lord's Supper, after he finishes cleansing the grime from his disciples' feet, what does he say? What I have done for you, you shall go and do the same also. So there's very little that we can do that better gets us out of our own head and our own troubles than doing some service for others. And we all get this. We know how it works. And it's very empowering. We talk about that desire for control. This is control in a good way. At a point when, let's face it, we have no control over whatever the trial is, be it the coronavirus now, or if there's some other large trial in your life when you're listening to this. Generally, there's nothing we can do to put a dent in that, but we can always reach out and do something for the people God has put in our life. So, number 2, helping others. Third one, offer it up. Offer it up. Such a powerful phrase. It is something that is become just a catchphrase these days. Well, when it's used at all, most people probably don't even think of it anymore. But it is not a catchphrase. It's very powerful. When trials come in our life, if we just fight against them with bitterness and anger, and this is our control. Remember, we want to control our outcomes, and we don't like that outcome. If we just want to push back against it, we lose that opportunity. If we accept it and we embrace it willingly in love, and we offer it up to God, we unite it with Christ on his cross, grace is released there. We've always understood it that way. It's the teaching of Christ and the church ever since. And so when we do that, when we take these trials that come our way, it's actually an opportunity. When we offer them up just generally offer it to the Lord, or we offer it specifically for someone. Lord, I offer it for this person in my life who's really having challenges right now. Grace is released. Light enters into the world. Someone's life somewhere is improved by us doing that. So number 3, we offer it up. And here's a 4th bonus response we can always have to trials in our life, and that is asceticism. Asceticism, it comes from a Greek word meaning exercise or effort. And with that, certainly an athlete training for a competition is someone practicing asceticism, or a student studying hard for an exam. That's someone practicing asceticism. And then particularly for us, when we deny ourselves, we are practicing asceticism, because that is where we grow. Remember, we talked about our unruly human nature. That's the part of us that just wants comfort and craves indulgences and control. Well, when we deny that part of ourselves, we're growing spiritually. We're growing closer to God. Again, very powerful, very empowering. And so that's certainly the concept behind Lent, for instance, part of the concept behind Lent in terms of our own growth, our own perfection. Now, we're all experiencing asceticism right now, one way or the other, relative to the coronavirus. No one gets out of this unscathed, as we've said. But that goes into the offered up category. This is suffering that we didn't seek, that we didn't willingly go out and bring upon ourselves. And yes, we should accept that and offer it up. In asceticism, we do get to practice some control, self-control. We get to say, you know what, I'm going to actually pile on one more. And yeah, that's literally what I'm talking about. And much like Lent, and it's small, very small. I'm not going to have cream in my coffee, or I'm not going to have dessert. Whatever it is, you want it to be small because you want it to be very achievable. You don't want to pick some really grandiose sacrifice that you may not be able to see through, because that's very spiritually damaging to fail in this. But you just pick something small. And again, the power that's released from that, in terms of our self-control and the confidence and the encouragement there, as well as when we offer that sacrifice up, grace is released in the world. So asceticism, always a really powerful, almost like a counterpunch when life is attacking you, and you get to push back. Yeah, fine, I'm actually going to take control. I'm going to take this small additional discipline. And you've probably experienced before. It is extremely powerful, the changes that it can make in your life. So there were 4 good things that we can do in response to trials. Now we come back to our opening point, how they are all elevated by Christian meditation. And it ties into a point we had the other day. Everything good comes from God, because God is essentially all goodness. And so even our desire to do something good comes from God. And then everything that we need to act on that desire comes from God. Even just the people in our life who we may need to assist us, or the person in our life who is the object of that desire. I want to go help my neighbor. All of that, everything starts and ends with God and for his good purposes. So it simply stands to reason that anything that we engage in is going to be improved, strengthened, elevated, fulfilled, made glorious by his greater participation. And how we do that, first and foremost, is always through Christian meditation. That is where we come to that close, intimate relationship with Christ. And that brings us to one other point, and this is where we'll close, because all of this, even Christian meditation itself, it all boils down to Christ. That is what it is truly all about. That is the only reason that any of it works, is because of Christ, who became man. I can't give you peace. These words can't give you peace. A podcast can't give you peace. A blog post can't give you peace. If I could write you a check for $1 million right now, that would not give you peace. It would not transform your life. It would not give you meaning, inner harmony, becoming fully yourself, fully engaged in relationships in your life, and all the rest of that. All of that comes only from Christ and through Christ. And that is the point of Christian meditation, because he wants to tell you that. He wants to give that to you. I can't, no one else can. So with that, I hope there's something in these past 5 sessions that has been a consolation to you, and in whatever trials you're facing, because again, the Lord is there, and he wants to reach into your life there and give you his words that can heal and transform you and show you that there really is something on the other side of whatever that pain is. So thank you again so much for making this time for the Lord, for being with me here in this episode. And as always, I look forward to being with you again.